Good evening. Good evening. I'm back after a very long morning, but I'm back to wrap up the events because I do not expect that anybody watching this or anybody on my channel or anybody wondering what was the news from today's hostage release will actually go and watch the 6-hour live stream, by which at the end, even I was absolutely fed up and left before Trump's speech at the Israeli Knesset. And thank God I did, because he spoke for over an hour. And so that would have been at least another hour on the live stream. So anyway, I just thought, let me get back on this evening, wrap up the day's events, of which there were so many twists and turns. But most importantly, the living hostages are all back, all returned to Israel. And so this phase is mostly over, not 100%. But most importantly, the living hostages are all released. They're all with their families now. They're all in Israeli hospitals. They're beginning the recovery process. The Palestinian prisoners also released to their homes, or where some were going to the West Bank. Anyway, I didn't follow up exactly where everybody was heading. There were 2,000 almost Palestinian prisoners released, in addition, in exchange for the 20. Now, what's supposed to happen as well is that there's supposed to be 28 deceased hostages, and they're all supposed to be released, and they were all supposed to be released today. Only 4 have come back. So right now there's the identification process is taking place. What's happening? Lucas, you can open the door. Yes, you have keys. That there was a reason for that you took keys. Okay. So the bodies have been received, and Israel is currently working on identifying the remains, but they're believed to be Daniel Peretz, who was a soldier who was killed, Guy Luz, I'm forgetting another name of an Israeli, and the one hostage from Nepal, Bipin Joshi, whose sister and mother had come here a couple weeks ago to rally and advocate for his release. There had been one video released of him alive in captivity way back at the beginning, and nothing since then. So there was a concern that he was killed, but now the question is how and when exactly. So anyway, that wraps up at least that journey for those 4 families. But there's still another 24 bodies that need to be recovered and returned. Okay, in a very jam-packed day, there was also the visit of Donald Trump to the region. Actually, also, I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio also came, and the other one, there was I think Pete Hegseth as well. Anyway, he talked about him. I was driving while listening to his speech, so I didn't see if they were actually in the gallery. I think Rubio was for sure. So he landed around 9:30, went straight to the Knesset. There were many speeches, and they lasted for a while. And then finally, President Trump spoke and went on for a long time, and ran the gamut of topics from, saying we're going to make a deal with Iran anytime when Iran wants to make a deal, they should just let us know. He also advised the Israeli president that he should pardon from now Netanyahu, who's on trial on fraud and corruption charges, for accepting gifts and things like that. And Trump referred to it, and he said, come on, cigars and champagne, what's the big deal? It's not a big deal. Give him a pardon. He calls him the greatest wartime president that Israel could have had, and all these things. In the meantime, two Knesset members who are Israeli citizens, obviously, if they're in the Knesset, held up signs of genocide, accusing Israel of genocide. They're both from this party, the list, the joint list, something like that. I don't remember the name in English. And one is Arab, and the other one is Jewish. But anyway, they have been criticizing the Israeli government all along for its military operations in Gaza. And so they were kicked out during Trump's speech for holding up these signs. So now the twists and turns. Let's talk about that for a little bit. The crazy turn of events, as Trump came here and got to the Knesset, and they had live video of him walking in, and then the video went blank, and he was having backroom meetings. During the meetings, you get the news that two things. First, that Netanyahu was now invited and was going to go to this peace summit going on in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt right now, actually, with about 20 to 30 world leaders, some from the Middle East, some from Europe, including Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. So they're all going to come, and you should come too. And he previously hadn't been invited, the prime minister, and Trump said, no, you come, I invite you. You come on my plane, no problem. We'll go there together. And he said, okay. Now, this was supposed to be this big summit to determine the end of the war, phase 2, because we're only have finished up to phase 1, which is still a little sketchy because there's still 24 more bodies that need to be returned. So that's now phase 2 would be is Hamas going to give up its arms, and who's going to govern Gaza? And so everybody wants to put in their opinion on this, right? So Netanyahu said, great, I'm going to come. I'm going to get on the plane. I'm going to get on Air Force One with you. I'll take my own flight back. No problem. Thanks a lot. All settled. And then within minutes of that, suddenly the president of Indonesia is going to come to Israel tomorrow night. Going to be here tomorrow night. And we're like, what? Like, where did this come from? Israel and Indonesia don't have diplomatic ties. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim nation. I think it's 87% majority Muslim nation. And for him to come to Israel would be extremely unprecedented, dramatic, and what would be the reason? Would it be declaring a peace deal, or expansion of the Abraham Accords, which Trump talked about a lot in his speech today? And so, of course, that's everything that we assumed was going to happen. And then and we thought, wow, there's going to be, I actually thought they were going to announce it in the Knesset. And what ended up happening, I'm just looking to see if from the notes I took, if there was anything interesting. Nope, I don't think so. Okay, so what ended up happening after all of that drama and buildup, we get a message from the prime minister's office saying Netanyahu regrets he's not going to be able to go. He canceled his trip to Sharm el Sheikh because of the Jewish holiday, which is ongoing right now. It's the last night of Sukkot, and Sukkot will last through the morning. Now, according to this being the Jewish state, the leaders, the heads of the government, they don't travel on Shabbats and holidays when it's like a religious observance of the day, because they are there's no flights, there's no it's like the Jewish observance of Shabbat has to be kept by the highest level of government. So he would have had to have gotten there before Shabbat started, and he would not be able to leave until after it ended. So he said it was because of the holiday. Now, I was like, well, that's a little fishy. Like, you knew it was a holiday, so why'd you say yes? Like, we're all like, we all know it's a holiday. Kids haven't had school in so long. And, and I don't know what day today is because every day feels like a Saturday, like God knows. But so you knew it was a holiday. So later on, I hear a little bit of analysis on the news, and they're like, nah, of course, it wasn't the reason. Everybody knows it was a holiday. And of course, you had this big chance, like, to go there with all of these leaders. I mean, yeah, I'll just name a few countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Armenia, Azerbaijan. I think also Paraguay was there. I mean, the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, was there. Turkey, Erdogan was there. So all of these big leaders. And why are you not going to go? Like, this would have been the chance. Like, your buddy Trump brings you in there and says, hey, shake his hand. But that's precisely what they were saying. The analysts were saying was that if he had been forced to shake hands with, or encouraged to, or refused to shake hands with a leader with whom he is not ready to make peace, like Palestinian leader or something like that, then it would have been a very bad scene. So in order to avoid the scene, he didn't go. Now they are saying, like, this is a huge missed opportunity to move forward, to get progress. So anyway, that is the takeaway from some of the media that I was listening to after that. And I'm telling you, we went from, wow, this is going to be the most historic and shocking day in a long time, to like, wow, everything you said you were going to do was just like, everything was just canceled. Oh, because the president of Indonesia said, no, I'm not coming to Israel. So it was like, what? What? It was like completely confirmed he's coming. Oh, I even looked up his name. It's like Subianto. I'm sorry. Now I can't remember exactly. No way I'm going to find it fast enough, am I? Okay. Oh, no, I am going to find it fast enough. Indonesian president name is Subianto. That's right. Okay. So suddenly he's not coming either. So suddenly all the news that we thought we were going to get, we're not getting. Then that made Trump's speech a little bit less impactful, because I mean, everybody can take it as they want, but of course, I think our expectations were raised to, like, wow, they're going to make some crazy announcements here in the Knesset. And then in the end, there were no announcements made, and everything that was going to be dramatic was canceled with, like, basically within an hour or two of it being announced that it was going to happen. So that's the politics. Crazy thing, just like everybody preached their side of the story from the Knesset pulpit, if I may. Of course, Netanyahu defended all of his decisions and said that that's why, the reason the hostages were released today is because of my military policies and the pressure, and we caused Hamas to give up and everything. And so anyway, he was able to do that. I think Yair Lapid, who was the opposition, he also got to speak, and he kind of also like said his things politically, saying, no, it wasn't because of that. It was like, oh, Trump, thank you. Because of you, our hostages are out because of you. Like, in other words, not because of him, who I'm in the opposition to, but because of you, the president of the US. So anyway, I just have to give a shout out to specifically Naomi, who is watching. Naomi and I almost share a birthday. She is my very, I can't say cute, niece, my amazing niece in Rhode Island. And somehow Aunt Beanie is there too. So, hey guys, thank you for tuning in. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I forgot, she's not cute anymore. She's now too old to be cute, but I'm biased. What can I say, Naomi? Okay, so that is that. Now I'm just going to give you a little bit of rundown on the hostages. We're getting some reports from the families. Now, of course, the media is not in speaking to the hostages that were let out, but the family members are coming out from the hospital rooms, and they are doing interviews with the media. So, for instance, one hostage, Elkanah Buchbut, he was in a tunnel the entire 2 years. he was also chained for a lot of the time, and then I think what I remember, he there was one day that it was his anniversary, and he said, "Today is my I don't know how he knew the date. Today's my anniversary. Could you please let me shower?" And I mean, it had been a long time. I don't know if this was his first anniversary, only anniversary, of the first time, but they took off the chains and let him after he pled for a while to be able to do that. But he was for the full 2 years underground. Then there was Matan Angrest, who was a soldier, was kidnapped as a soldier. All of his unit that he was with was killed, and he remembers. And I think among them might be Daniel Peretz, whose body is believed to have been one of those released now. Wait, let's see. Here's another one. So Matan Amgras, I'm just going to pause this so I can read in a second. It was alone for most of the time as well. And then in the last 4 months was in a tunnel. I think he was physically abused. I think from the incident with the kidnapping, he was, when there was a battle between, I think they manned a tank, these guys, I'm not sure, but he was injured in the kidnapping. She said his arm from the shoulder down is like very bad burns. So he has a lot of scars. He was abused and tortured and interrogated because he is a soldier. So he was more of a high value hostage for Hamas, and they wanted to get more information out of him than probably that he knew. But he remembered more or less the battle, but didn't remember his kidnapping. So that was a little bit of his story. Let's see, another one. Oh, and then he was also like in the tunnels, or where he heard the Israeli bombs dropping. They had to go from place to place because it would get like just full of the dust from the bombings, from the buildings, from the debris. So he went through a lot. He also, the mom was saying another thing, when they would say, they wanted to spoil him, and they would, like, she'd say, like, even something simple like, "Oh, do you want a cup of water?" And he's like, "Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay." Like just having the choice, like, "Oh, do you want something to eat?" He's like, "No, I'm not that. Just a cucumber or just something small." And the mom was saying it's like he's so shocked by having freedom of choice now, and being able to, like, even to be able to get up and go to the bathroom that's in the hospital room, in his private hospital room, as opposed to having to ask somebody or beg somebody to use the bathroom. So she said it's, he's okay, but obviously these are some of the things that he's going to be dealing with. So Alon Ohel, who I wonder how his eye is, because they were talking about it. Okay, so almost the whole time he was in the same tunnel, and he was suffering from all sorts of pains. He was chained as well. 40 days ago, they moved him, like just out of the blue, to a different tunnel in the middle of Gaza Strip. They took hours to get there. The army, that was around the time. Oh, because I guess the army was going to go in and try to conquer Gaza City at the time, and so that's why. Oh, they moved him. They used him as a human shield. That's what he's saying. They used him as a human shield. Oh, wow. Okay. He said also psychological terror never stopped for a minute. Let's see if this goes on. I had it paused so I could actually translate at the same time. So the stories are just starting to come out from the family members who are getting a chance to meet with them, and who feel free to tell the story, to tell the press. but this was an all-encompassing day of very high emotions, tensions, so many different emotions. I mean, obviously, like a lot of joy at the release. There were thousands of people gathered in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv to watch the live feed together, and so that was going on all day. But at the same time, there are bodies that are supposed to come back, and so there's different reactions, different responses for different people. And anyway, it was just a very highly charged, dramatic day, both because of the hostages, both the Palestinian prisoners being released, also because Trump was here, and then Trump was at the Knesset, and then all the announcements that were made and then revoked about traveling and visits and stuff like that. And so it was just a real back and forth day. And the news has just been like solely on this. And if you watch the Israeli news, you see just like after reunion video of the 20 hostages with their families, with their loved ones. I mean, many stories that we've heard for 2 years. These people became public figures. They were never known before. They probably never would have been known, but here in a small country like this, you become a public figure. Suddenly, everybody knows your story. Like the mom of Matan Angrest was saying that he didn't get it. He was like, why are we taking a helicopter to the hospital? Why can't we just drive? Why are these people out there? Why is this happening? And he didn't realize the scope and magnitude of what had been going on in the country for the 2 years that he was gone. And the fight that was going on. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the country decompresses after these 2 years, and how people went from every day wearing a tape where they wrote, just like masking tape, like they added the day, like 736, 737, 738 days of the war, of the hostages. I think one of the first people to start that was Rachel Goldberg Polin, whose son was kidnapped, and his name was Hirsch, and he was killed and executed by Hamas with 5 other Israelis over a year ago in Rafah, I think in southern Gaza, in a tunnel, and the army found their bodies. So but all of these families, whether they're any connection to hostages, these families have been together, whether their loved ones were killed, kidnapped, already dead, kidnapped alive, or just unknown fate. And some of these hostages, there was no sign of life the entire time. So just very interesting day, very dramatic. And now we have like basically Shabbat-like conditions, meaning, everything's like closed and quiet. And it's the last day of Sukkot. And, this all began on the last day of Sukkot 2 years ago. But, we were talking about this. I was talking about this with Lucas, my son, and he said, "Oh, I guess that means there's not going to be any more sirens." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." And suddenly there haven't been. And it's kind of like, yeah, but can you trust that? Is it really going to stick? Will the agreement hold? Remember, we're only in phase 1. There's a bloodbath going on in Gaza, and it's not coming from Israel. It's between the sides now, Hamas versus other clans that may or may not have been working with Israel. In any case, they are just shooting at each other, executing. Hamas is executing on the streets of Gaza. Some people they accuse of collaborating with Israel. And I don't know how the organization that's so intent on killing, whether collaborators or Israelis themselves, or fighting, for their cause, are going to now be in charge of, at least in the interim, rebuilding a very devastated land, and getting housing for people and getting them food and humanitarian aid. So we're in limbo until phase 2, and we don't really know what phase 2 will entail, except for the disarming of Hamas, like the demilitarization of the organization, and probably a lot of the actors here want them out of leadership altogether. But those things are not agreed upon yet, and that is part of what was going on at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And got to check the news on that one. I think there was one thing I did have open, if I can find it quickly. Egyptian President Fattah al-Sisi called on President Trump to reinforce the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And then Trump signs a ceremonial ceasefire deal at the Egypt summit. This might just only be ceremonial, but he was flanked by the leaders of Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar. So don't know. All right. Anyway, that is more or less a wrap up of a very hectic day. And this is about 1/20th of the time compared to watching the live that I did this morning. So that was more fun to watch as events unfolded. They've already unfolded, so it might be less interesting. I couldn't point to an hour that was better than another or more boring than another. So stick with this. All right. Anyway, thank you for joining. And there you go. Wrap up for the day. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Thank you very much.